it is not unlike having a very sharp knife which can puncture the bubbles which other people attempt to create and would like others to live in. We can give a few examples of this, starting with a very simple one where the obvious detail seems to have escaped people's attention. I refer to the Skripal case from 2018, where the British government and others attempted to enforce the view that Julia and Sergei Skripal had been poisoned by a nerve agent which had been applied to the door handle of their house. We can, of course, discuss the whys and wherefores of the claim, or we can simply examine the official documentation into the case. As we can see from the official transcript and documentation, 1. Julia Skripal stated that in fact she was sprayed in the restaurant. 2. The forensic team stated that they found that the greatest concentration was on the door handle to their house, and on the basis of this evidence they concluded that this was the initial source of the poison, and not the restaurant. The forensic work is, to put it at its charitable best, truly laughable and as bad as can be imagined. You do not even have to have any understanding or qualification in relation to such work to note the obvious, even if certain people resort to bluster and state, "You're not qualified." 1. In a restaurant, after a customer leaves, a waiter comes and cleans the table, thus removing potential forensic evidence. This in fact happens multiple times in this case, given the delay in any forensic work. The forensic team take no account of this obvious fact. 2. Where someone states, "I was sprayed in a location," and that location has been tampered with, it is rather foolish to conclude that ground zero is likely to be elsewhere on the basis that a greater amount of the substance was found in that location. 3. We cannot claim that Julia Skripal was lying, nor indeed can it be claimed that the forensic team has the most basic understanding of forensics. Indeed, it is rather less than plausible to suggest that the Skripals both left home 3 hours earlier, both touched the door handle, drove to the town center, fed some ducks, went to the mill pub, then the restaurant, and then, with their different builds, health conditions and ages, both fell ill from such a substance at the same time in the same location. 4. The reason why Nick Bailey fell ill was because he touched the inner bag which contained Sergei Skripal's wallet, which would itself have been liable to contamination as demonstrated by the decision to employ double bagging and indeed the spread of the substance inside the house. 5. The reason why the BMW belonging to the Skripals was contaminated was, A. It was accessed as part of the search by the team doing the cursory forensics using the keys which had been contaminated. B. No particular care was taken upon removal of the vehicle, occurring as it did at the behest of a commercial storage firm without any evidence of the usage of protective gear. Actual concern in that regards occurred after the car was moved to Porton Down. Inevitably, as it was conveyed to the yard using this vehicle, it was driven up and down the loader. 6. The reason why the house was contaminated was because the key which was by that stage in the possession of Nick Bailey was itself contaminated by the substance due to its initial proximity to the wallet which was in the pocket of Sergei Skripal, who owned the house. Upon touching the key, he then touched the substance which he then proceeded to spread on the door handle. Nick Bailey, because he does understandably not have a good memory, seems not too sure of where the key came from and suggests 2 options. The information from Inspector Mant does show, however, that he already had the key. He uses the phrase, using a key Nick had possession of. This would imply he had possession of it before arriving, given the detailed statement where he notes things which are handed over. On the basis of this, we can state that the key did, in fact, come from Bourne Hill, and before that, Sergei Skripal, and not the neighbor, as he seemed to suggest could be the case. Additionally, we may note the following location, which includes Caius, which is pronounced Keys, which, like the location in Salisbury is next to a malting, includes a Newnham, which, particularly given the nearby presence of a Sydney Sussex college, sounds like Newnham, which is what Novichok means, and which also includes a handle, which may bring to mind a Messiah or mess here, or the smearing of the substance on the door handle. Indeed, to go further, we have Summerfield, which may bring to mind Somersault. We also have Linihan, a name which would bring to mind Father Ted, with Bishop Brennan being in charge of the trio in the program. With reference to the period, it would bring to mind a retired spy who was head of the CIA. We also have riddle, which might bring to mind fiddle, with Skripal meaning fiddler, and no doubt a noticeable number of cripples next door at the doctor's surgery. To be clear, many ideas for events of this nature are sourced from maps, which is convenient inasmuch as the police are even less likely to examine such evidence than they would be to actually carry out forensics properly. Moreover, Cambridge is a rather important location, with reference to intelligence agencies being as it is the location where, historically speaking, MI6 officers were recruited. From this brief analysis of this location, we have the following list of terms. It is clear, or rather undeniable, that the official narrative in relation to what happened is a lie. In turn, we can state that 1. The claim that 2 supposed Russians applied the substance to the door handle of their house is completely untrue, which in turn means that Russia was falsely accused. 2. The Europeans and others chose not to carry out their own independent assessment of the claim made by the UK and chose, for political ends, and like the warmongering yapping poodles they are, to instantly point fingers at Russia, to issue joint statements at summit conferences and impose sanctions, with all the usual pomposity. 3. Other such claims about Russia do appear less credible, most notably the consequent claim about Navalny. Russia would hardly use such a deadly poison against the leader of the opposition after having been falsely accused of using it against the Skripals. 4. This is what is known as crying wolf. On the basis of the fact that the Europeans do so in this important instance, one must necessarily question not only these sorts of allegations about Russia, but others as well. Indeed, the whole basis of the attitudes towards Russia and the United Kingdom must be called into question. 5. The latest claim by the British that Russia used a frog toxin to, from what we can gather, kill Navalny is laughable given A, their record of crying wolf and lying. Indeed, we could point out that the claim is made after I completed the first draft of this video where the original claim was debunked. B. The fact that this focus upon Russia forms part of an attempt by them to use the fear factor to secure close relations with Europe. This is suggested by, amongst other things, the juxtaposition of stories on the front page of the Telegraph. They only mention this years after his death at the conference where there is talk about securing closer relations. D. How would they get hold of the samples? Evidently, this is problematic, and it would not seem necessary to have used a poison to kill someone in a Russian jail, particularly one which apparently comes from another continent, and particularly when it would be easier in such a tense environment, where fights might happen, to arrange an accident. At this stage, we can